Call to order the August 1st, 2018 James City County Planning Commission regular meeting. Mr. Holt, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Leverins.
Here.
Ms. Leverins is an at-large member. Mr. Polster.
Here.
Mr. Polster represents the Jamestown District. Mr. Haldeman.
Here.
Mr. Haldeman represents the Berkeley District. Mr. Schmidt, who represents the Roberts District and is this year's vice chair, could not be here with us this evening. Mr. O'Connor is an at-large member. I believe we are expecting him this evening. Mr. Kropp.
Here.
Mr. Kropp represents the Powhatan District. And Mr. Richardson.
Here.
Mr. Richardson represents the Stonehouse District and is chairman of the Planning Commission for this year. My name is Paul Holt, Director of Community Development and Planning for the county, and sitting to my left is Mr. Max Halevin, our Deputy County Attorney. You'll notice that's a move up from the previous Assistant County Attorney. So our congratulations to him on his recent promotion,
Awesome.
so to speak. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Holt. We will now move into our public comment section of the meeting. Public comment is open. It's topics that are not subject to a public hearing this evening. If anyone would, I have no speaker cards, so if anyone is here for a non-public hearing item. Seeing and hearing no one, we will close public comment and move on to reports of the commission. I believe we have the policy committee report. Mr. Haldeman.
We do. The Policy Committee last came to order at 4 p.m. on July 13th, 2018, with Ms. Leverins and Messrs. O'Connor, Richardson, Kropp, and yours truly present. In response to a request by the Board of Supervisors, the committee initiated a review of the process by which residential dwelling units can be transferred via a master plan consistency determination made under Section 24-23 of the zoning ordinance. Mr. Paul Holt, Director of Planning, reviewed the roles of the Planning Director, the DRC, the Planning Commission, and the Board of Supervisors in this process. The committee members discussed the nature of the contract between a subdivision HOA and the residents and the need for any ordinance contract, ordinance amendment to respect that contract. Staff will create a flow chart showing when the Planning Director may approve dwelling transfers administratively and when they must be approved legislatively. The committee noted the Comprehensive Plan Land Use GSA 1.3 calls on the county to, quote, use policy and ordinance tools to ensure the provision of open space in development proposals. In particular, maintain or increase incentives for cluster development in exchange for additional open space, close quote. Whether this related subject can be incorporated into the transfer of residential dwelling unit was left to a future meeting. The meeting adjourned at 5:14 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Haldeman. Any questions, discussion? Thanks much. We will now move into our consent agenda for the evening. The consent agenda items are determined to be non-controversial. However, anyone can pull an item for discussion, and for this evening, we have only the minutes of the July 3rd, 2018 regular meeting.
Move approval.
Approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We will now move into the public hearings portion of the meeting. And Suloff, Colonial Manor, Z-0001-2018.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. Dr. Pedro Becerra has applied on behalf of BC Secure Holdings to rezone approximately 7.4 acres of land located at 8679 Pocahontas Trail from R5 multifamily residential with proffers to MU mixed use with proffers. This rezoning would permit the operation of a mixed-use building, including the uses of independent living, assisted living, skilled nursing, and a medical office. The property is located inside the primary service area and is designated low-density residential by the adopted comprehensive plan. This facility has operated as a continuing care retirement community, or CCRC, including the services of independent living, skilled nursing, and assisted living for nearly 2 decades. Colonial Manor currently offers physical therapy services exclusively to its residents. This use is considered accessory to the CCRC and is permitted by the current zoning of the property. The applicant would like to extend those services as an outpatient physical therapy office to the general public. This use, medical office as defined in our zoning ordinance, would no longer be considered accessory and is therefore not permitted under the current zoning. thus the need to rezone to a district, which would allow all of the uses in one building. While the applicant is proposing a new use, the proposal does not include any physical expansion to the building. The applicant is proffering conditions which are intended to limit the impact of the added use as well as the potential use of the new zoning district, and also to preserve the existing protections provided by current proffer and SUP conditions. The proffers include limits on occupancy and uses permitted on the property, as well as provisions for buffering, traffic, landscaping, and signage. Additionally, the development would be subject to a binding master plan, which was included in tonight's packet materials, and specifically calls out square footage and density limits for each use. Staff finds the proposal to be compatible with the 2035 comprehensive plan, the zoning ordinance, and surrounding development, and recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of this application to the Board of Supervisors, subject to the proposed proffer conditions included in tonight's packet. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have, and the applicant is available as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Sula. To my colleagues, any questions of staff? Any disclosures? Okay, thank you. Sula. I open the public hearing for Colonial Manor. If we have any speakers. Case. Seeing and hearing no one, we will close the public hearing and open it to my colleagues for discussion or motion.
Chairman, I move to approve the rezoning application and the associated proffers.
Thank you, Mr. Kropp. Mr. Holt, would you call the roll, please?
Thank you. Ms. Leverins.
Aye.
Mr. Polster.
Aye.
Mr. Haldeman.
Aye.
Mr. Kropf.
Aye.
And Mr. Richardson.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Holt. And our next grouping is a series of items for public hearing for the Agricultural and Forestal District renewals for 2018. Those are items numbers 3 through 14 in the public hearings this evening. To include number 3, AFD-02-86-1-2018, the Croker AFD renewal. Number 4, AFD 386-1-2018, Hill Pleasant Farm AFD renewal. Number 5, the Barnes Swamp AFD renewal. Number 6, the Cranston's Pond AFD renewal. Number 7, the Mill Creek AFD renewal. Number 8, the Gordon Creek AFD renewal. Number 9, Christensen's Corner AFD renewal. Number 10, Yarmouth Island AFD renewal. Number 11, the Gospel Spreading Church AFD renewal. Number 12, the Armistead AFD renewal. Number 13, the Wrights Island AFD renewal. And finally, number 14, the Carter's Grove AFD renewal. And Mr. Holt?
Just a couple of brief words before we start the staff presentation. These items do represent quite a few on the agenda, and in an effort to help with some of the procedure in opening all the public hearings and conducting the votes. Mr. Halavin has helped us with that in what may have been his first task as a deputy county attorney. His advice is Robert's rules allow for a series of related or independent actions to be taken up on a single main motion. So what his staff is proposing and what the chair has read into the record is recommending that staff provide one overarching staff report for all of these items on agenda items 3 through 14. We will then have one public hearing for all of the items collectively. We will then close the public hearing en masse. And with that, the vote could be taken up, or a motion could be made by a commission member identifying all or any number of the AFD ordinances by reference there. You don't have to, in your motion, you don't have to worry about reading out the titles for all of those AFDs. And again, the vote could include all of them or is otherwise specified by whoever would like to make a motion at the end. If you would like to consider them separately or pull one out, you'll just want to keep that. But again, you wouldn't have to read those into the record. You could identify them by reference in the agenda number. So we're hoping that would allow for a little bit of efficiency tonight. Yes, Mr. Alderman.
There are a couple of requests for withdrawals in addition to requests for extensions. Would any vote be approval or denial of both the extension and the withdrawal, or would they be treated, they wouldn't be treated separately, I wouldn't think?
The request for the withdrawals during a renewal period are essentially by right. And really up until the moment that the board votes on these items, the property owner would have the ability under state code to request that it be withdrawn. So you don't have to proactively affirm the request for the withdrawal. It would be just simply acknowledged as it is in the staff report, and you could make that.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other questions of Planning Director?
With that, Ms. Petrowski is prepared to give an overall summary staff report on all of these items collectively.
Thank you, Ms. Petrowski. Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. There are currently 13 agricultural and forestal districts in the county, 12 of which are set to expire in October of this year. As required by state code, the county must review all established AFDs prior to their expiration. During this review, districts must be either continued, modified, or terminated. State code also provides that all AFD property owners have an opportunity to withdraw any or all of their property from the AFD during the renewal period. The Croker District consists of 23 properties totaling approximately 1,182 acres. Staff has not received any withdrawal requests for this district, and no changes are proposed to the AFD conditions. The Hill Pleasant Farm District currently consists of 4 properties totaling approximately 588 acres. Staff has received a request to withdraw one 27-acre parcel from this district. No changes are proposed to the conditions. The Barnes Swamp District currently consists of 30 properties, totaling approximately 1,720 acres. Staff has received 3 withdrawal requests, removing approximately 66 acres from the district. No changes are proposed to the conditions. The Cranston's Pond District consists of 6 properties, totaling approximately 774 acres. Staff has not received any withdrawal requests for this district, and no changes are proposed to the conditions. The Mill Creek District currently consists of 35 properties, totaling approximately 3,214 acres. Staff has not received any withdrawal requests for this district, and no changes are proposed to the conditions. The Gordon Creek District currently consists of 35 properties, totaling approximately 3,128 acres. Staff has received a request to withdraw one 26-acre parcel from the district. No changes are proposed to the conditions. The Christensen's Corner District currently consists of 7 properties, totaling approximately 1,179 acres. Staff has not received any withdrawal requests for this district, and no changes are proposed to the conditions. The Yarmouth Island District currently consists of 13 properties, totaling approximately 2,143 acres. Staff has not received any withdrawal requests for this district, and no changes are proposed to the conditions. The Gospel Spreading Church District currently consists of 8 properties, totaling approximately 1,133 acres. Staff has not received any withdrawal requests for this district, and no changes are proposed to the conditions. The Armistead District currently consists of 4 properties, totaling approximately 312 acres. Staff has not received any withdrawal requests for this district, and no changes are proposed to the conditions. The Wrights Island District currently consists of 6 properties, totaling approximately 1,497 acres. No withdrawal requests have been received for this district. Staff is recommending a revision to condition number 2 to reference the most recent version of the Board of Supervisors policy pertaining to the withdrawal of lands from AFDs. The Carter's Grove District currently consists of 2 properties, totaling approximately 316 acres. Staff has not received any withdrawal requests for this district, and no changes are proposed to the conditions. At its June 21st meeting, the AFD Advisory Committee reviewed these renewals and voted 9-0 to recommend the continuation of the districts to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. Staff finds these districts to be compatible with the requirements of state code and surrounding development, as well as consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance. Staff also recommends the Planning Commission recommend approval of these AFDs for a period of 4 years to the Board of Supervisors, with the exception of the Wrights Island AFD, which has historically been renewed for a period of 8 years. Each district would remain subject to the conditions included in their respective staff reports. We'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Petrowski. Any questions?
Question about the Wrights Island 8-year term. It's just because that's always the way it's been?
That one, yes, when that one was created, the property owners then chose to have an 8-year term.
Okay, so that's consistent with what the Board of Supervisors said at their last meeting about giving the owners the right to choose.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks.
Anyone else? I've failed to recognize earlier Commissioner of the Revenue here with us this evening, Mr. Bradshaw. Thanks for joining us. And Mr. Holt.
Mr. Chairman, with not being any further questions from the commission just at this moment before you open the public hearing, I thought I would take a moment just to add just a little bit of brief context and overview about what the AFD program is in the county. It's easy to forget some of the details. As I was mentioning at the beginning of the meeting, much like the leap year, since this tends to happen only every 4 years, everybody gets their memories ramped up, and and then 4 years kind of come and go kind of quick, and it's always good to refresh about what the program is and what it does. But just for really a high-level overview and recap, back in 1977, the Virginia General Assembly created a process to, and I'll quote here from the state code, to provide a means for a mutual undertaking by landowners and local governments to protect and enhance agricultural and forestal land as a viable segment of the Commonwealth's economy and an economic and environmental resource of major importance, end quote. The process also provides landowners an opportunity to try to protect their land from pressures to develop. The process, of course, as we've said here tonight, is known as the Agricultural and Forestal Districts Act, and that's the name of the act that's actually called out in state code. The act gives local governments authority upon landowners' voluntary application, and that's pretty key, to establish agricultural districts, forestal districts, and districts that contain a mix of both agricultural and forestal lands. Land within an AFD district is affected in several ways. First, the district land qualifies for the benefits of use value taxation subject to local regulations. And a little caveat here, this is really a partnership between multiple county departments and efforts. Just being in an AFD does not automatically qualify or automatically cause the calculation of a use value taxation. That's a separate program that's administered by the Commissioner of Revenue's office. Second, restraints are imposed upon the local government as it may affect someone's property. More specifically, local governments may not restrict farming or forestry practices except to protect public health or safety. You may have heard this referenced by staff before, in that this protects landowners from nuisance laws. Local plans, ordinances, and decisions affecting land adjacent to the district must take into account both the district and the AFD Act. In addition, it's the policy of state agencies to encourage farming and forestry within the districts. No special purpose assessments or tax levies may be imposed on the basis of frontage, acreage, or value of land used for agricultural or forestal production within a district. And lastly, land acquisition by agencies, political subdivisions, or public service corporations, including acquisition by eminent domain, must be reviewed by the Board of Supervisors if the land acquisition in question exceeds 10 acres from the district or 1 acre from any district farm or forestry operation. So really the purpose of the AFD district is to, again, provide a tool. There's, as you may have heard, the discussion by the Board of Supervisors at their last work session. There's a little bit of a toolkit. There are a number of tools to preserve and protect open space. The AFD program in particular really allows a property owner to signal to the development world that their property is not currently available for development. And it allows those protections to be in place depending on the term of the district, whether it be 4 years, 8 years, et cetera. So in summary, the AFD program in James City County began back in 1986, and there have been 7, because a majority of the districts have 4-year renewal periods, there have been 7 previous major renewal periods in 1990, 94, 98, et cetera, et cetera. And as mentioned, of the 13 districts, 12 of these districts, because their 4-year terms are set to expire in October, and that's why we're going through the review and renewal. Again, with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Appreciate that review. Thank you so much. Any other questions related to AFD? Okay. We will open the public hearing then for items 3 through 14, all of the renewals of aforementioned. If anyone has public comment. Seeing and hearing no one, we will close the public comment, and I will look to my colleagues for discussion and/or motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend approval of the 13 AFD districts, that's redundant, I know, under consideration to the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you, Mr. Halderman. Motion on the floor. Mr. Holt, please, will you call the roll?
Sure, and just to clarify Mr. Haldeman's motion, it's to recommend approval of agenda items 3 through 14 inclusive?
Exactly.
Okay. There's a motion on the floor. Ms. Leverins?
Aye.
Mr. Polster?
Aye.
Mr. Haldeman?
Aye.
Mr. Kropf?
Aye.
And Mr. Richardson?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Holt. And we will move on to Planning Commission considerations.
Agenda this evening.
Mr. Holt, back to you for the Planning Director's report this evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. In addition to the items contained within your agenda packets this evening, I did want to highlight a public meeting that's been advertised, but just in the interest of folks in attendance tonight and those who may be watching. Just a reminder, we have a public meeting scheduled for tomorrow night and for the Toano community, or really anybody who's interested, at Fire Station Number 1. They have a great new community room there as part of their recent addition and expansion, beginning at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The purpose of the public meeting is to continue the discussion and planning for roadway and drainage improvements in Toano. We had a community meeting early on, gosh, maybe a year ago, several months ago maybe, prior to the county pursuing revenue-sharing funds to improve roadway and other drainage improvements in the larger Toano watershed. The drainage area in Toano is extremely large. It's over 107 acres. We've been very fortunate to receive that funding. VDOT has acknowledged that they've approved our application, so the funding is in place. So, the county will now soon need to move into the preliminary engineering and move forward with implementing that project and start to put those funds to good use to make those improvements for the greater Toano area. So again, input is always continually needed to make sure we're making the right improvements in the right places. Again, takes on a little bit of a different sense of urgency and priority when you know the money's in place and we're getting ready to actually go do something versus just being an idea, so that's always a good thing. But please, everybody, come and share your experience and help make this a successful effort. With that, I don't have anything additional, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
No, thank you, Mr. Holt. Yes.
Drainage area, this is not a planning commission matter, is it? It's not going to come.
No, there's not a component of this that would require it come back through as part of a legislative item. This work, the Stormwater Advisory Committee and the work of the Stormwater Group is really taking the lead on this. This has been another just great example of the various county departments working together, because really the basis for rev share is to make improvements in the public right-of-way, and while there are the priority is to make those stormwater improvements, there's also other improvements to the roadway that are needed. There is a set of Toano design guidelines that were adopted by the board many years ago, and while keeping the project scope and the dollar amount reasonable, in order to be competitive in this round of funding, this project will also include some of those recommendations and some of those improvements as a companion piece that a bunch of departments work together to frame up that preliminary scope of work, make sure that was included in the public discussion early on. So it'll be a good success story, I think. And that's probably more so where some of the land use pieces come into place. Work that was done a long time ago.
If I'm correct, the stormwater CIP that the Planning Commission passed, there were multiple year funding for the Tohanna stormwater, which is that part of that shared funding.
Excellent point. Work of the policy committee each year to review the CIP.
LaVance?
Yes, the report that you give of all the new actions is very helpful and very interesting. Thank you. Is there a master list of all actions that you maintain in the department?
In terms of
reason-
the development plans or the recap of the board actions?
Well, the equivalent of the list that you include in your report every month of the new actions that have come to the planning department. That spreadsheet that you get. The reason I'm asking is that I was approached by a member of a resident of the county asking me what I knew about an application by a drugstore to build something near his house.
Oh,
And is there a way that I can easily find out what the status of that is?
There is. We have a good online system. So what I can do is, I'm not sure I could sit here and articulate it off of memory, but what I can do is I'll flip you a link tomorrow about where that information is located on the county website. Yeah, you all know how to?
I don't know.
Oh, I'll send it to everybody.
Great,
But it's
thank
a
you.
good way to go on, and hopefully with recent improvements, it's as easy as a few clicks on a map.
Well,
I'm probably
I was
oversimplifying,
Hoping
but
that
that's
as
the
part of
goal.
your new software upgrade, that would be an easier process, because I know
Oh.
maintaining that manually is a nightmare.
Yes, yes. That's the
Thank you.
goal. Make sure we've worked all the bugs out of that particular piece.
Thank you, Mr. Holt. Anyone else? So we can move into Planning Commission discussion and/or requests. Hearing none? That is everything, Mr. Holt, unless you had anything else.
Nothing from the staff side, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
All those in favor?
Aye.